Hey guys, welcome to day 9. Hope you're going to be able to hear me through this because it's extremely windy. This is story time. Off-grid Simply Happy Road Regrets, I think is the name, who has watched every single video and commented on every one of these vlogs. Thank you for that. Did suggest that it's time for a backstory, so let's go. Look, I didn't have a bad upbringing or anything. I was brought up in a fairly middle-class family. My father got us out of working class England, and I spent my childhood in New Zealand and then came here. Australia does have a fairly storied drinking culture. So as a teenager here, I started drinking quite early. I think some of my earliest memories is really when I was in a dancing, acting, singing sort of crew. We got together quite a lot. It was always the night before a performance so that we could all just go the next morning or whatever. For around the age of 14, 15, and we were always going to these parties, and there was always someone that was, 17 or closer to age, if not 18, that was in these groups that buy the booze or whatever. So they were always a bit of a piss up. I went to a private school and then went to a public school. I wasn't even into that much of the drink back then at that 15-year-old age. I went to the public school because they offered dance and stuff. But I did get in with the cannabis crew, that was my thing of choice. And, with the dancers and everyone, no one was really into that there. So yeah, essentially I was always able to perform really well like that anyway, but it was probably around a similar age that, it wasn't always easy to get cannabis at the age of 15, 16. So I would save my lunch money sometimes and go on the way home and get a few long necks. So long necks of beer basically 750 ml rather than the usual 375s. I know some places call long neck just like a beer with a long neck on it, but long necks are basically 2 beers. I used to do 3 for $8 or 3 for $9 back then, which was quite affordable. You could still buy a snack at lunch and then, get some booze for the night. So that was always going on if I couldn't get any weed. But it was around that time that 15-year-old time that I sort of had a fake ID as well. Born in 86, so on my student ID, I basically scratched a 6 into a 3. So I was able to get fags and booze from other places that just didn't ask any questions. It was a different time back then. Even I'd be wearing my school shirt, I'd just take my tie off and obviously school pants. Try and pretend like I'd been at work or something, but they knew, surely. They just wanted to make the sales. Well, this isn't going to work out, is it? I'm not going to get across there. Let me make a leap of faith. Alright. Headed down to the tunnel I've been meaning to get to. It might actually be better going on that side. This side's the puddle bit. Gonna see if I can. Hey, already gonna fall. It's not that deep. If I can get on these stepping stones, might be able to get across here. That's alright. Woo! There we go there. Alright, just getting back to story time now that we're in a comfy spot. Long story short, the police found me and I was taken in. They thought I was 19 years old. It's funny when I was thinking about this earlier because that might have been something to do with that stupid fake ID that I was carrying around on me. But they treated me as an adult. I had full detectives with shit over my head leading me into a car. I was so confused, I had no idea what was going on. They did the whole lie down on the ground. There was cops with guns drawn, ripping shit out of my pockets. It was just basically sat in a cell for 4.5 hours while the cops were trying to get in touch with my parents. Once they realised my actual age, and they couldn't speak to me without them present. So I was just stuck in a cell for 4.5 hours, not knowing anything. It turns out that was all thrown out and all that shit. And I had recently shaved my head, literally a couple of days before, and they showed me some identikit of somebody that had long, scruffy hair. And I was like, oh, so you think that somehow I fit the description? Wrong place, wrong time sort of situation. But from that, I got a really bad PTSD and agoraphobia, or agoraphobia, however you want to pronounce it. I didn't really leave the house for around 2 to 3 months. It took a while to find the right counselling. I was going into year 12, which is our final year of school. I basically dropped out halfway through that year. I finished my drama and dance units, I think, and maybe English. But there was a couple of units I didn't finish. It sort of changed me a lot then. I was diagnosed with an anxiety and stress disorder. And I guess through my 20s, it was pretty normal here to drink. Drink was a normal thing to do. Cannabis was very much illegal, even though it helped me. I've always said if we had medical cannabis back then, I wouldn't have started to drink. But it was never really a problem. Not what I thought. But, I did drink almost every day through my 20s at times, and I kind of thought everyone was drinking like me, in a way. Having moved around a little bit when I was younger, I didn't really have a solid group of friends. Moved schools a couple of times. I always felt a little bit paranoid about what people would think of me as well, so I was trying to be cool at times, and I was always just drinking more at a party than others, thinking that was the right Aussie thing to do. I don't know, it just always, that Aussie influence in drinking culture always crept in. Moved forward to like 27 years old, and I was moving into a new house. My son was on the way, and I was being made redundant after 6 years in a row. Which was just all happening within a 2-month period. Everything was up and go. I didn't know what was going to happen, and so I decided right then and there that was the first time that 10-year ago mark that I'm just going to not drink, and not going to smoke any cannabis. If I'm not working and I've got a son on the way, let's stop that crap. And that lasted all of 2 months or so, 3 months, 2 months. And I drank to cope because I actually couldn't find work after that a little bit. But it wasn't like anything excessive. It was just drinking most days, and always the same beer. It was just, more habitual than addiction. Fast forward to over the past few years, and then you start to realise how much those habits that have ingrained and embedded in you can manifest into something way more evil. I may have missed some things along the way, but these are just probably the things that come out to me when I'm thinking about the whole story of alcohol and where it's come from and where it goes. But definitely, a few years ago when COVID hit, it was a very different time for us. I'd actually just voluntarily quit a role a few months at the end of 2019. 2 months into the end of 2019, I had some bonuses coming up. It was a sales role. This is another point actually. In that sales role, I was working at for a couple of years. It was a corporate sales role. And on my first day there, the lads were down at the pub at 11 o'clock in the morning drinking beers and bought me a beer. And one of them actually said to me, this job's like no other. And the state manager had come down and said, come on guys, get upstairs soon, It was so weird to me, but it was like they were trying to remake some sort of Mad Men sort of environment where we all lost our inhibitions a little bit and then went out there and met with customers and sold. So if you ever have a corporate sales type person coming in smelling like mints and smelling like aftershave, probably because they've been at the pub in the morning or at lunch. And really, these guys were just alcoholics. They were already there and trying to just take people along with them. That's the way I see it now. Sorry if any of you guys see that and get offended by that, but that was a really bad culture for me to fall into, especially with 2 young kids at home. Because there was always the offer for free beers after work, come down, have a beer, blah, blah, blah. Just so much of that culture. So at the end of 2019, when youngest was due soon, A couple of little issues with him. I actually quit that job because it was too much stress, and you know, I had a couple of months of bonuses coming through anyway. I found a bit of an easier job at the start of that year, but literally 3 days into the start of that job, our son prematurely. You know, I think at that time I was actually really happy when I started that job as well, because it didn't seem like there was a drinking culture there. Didn't seem like, you know, the first few days I was there at all, no one was like, let's go to the pub, even from the training group or anything. So, you know, I was happy with that. But yeah, 3 days in, I had to take a day off, but I was there the next day. Even though they were like, what are you doing here? What am I going to do there? The kids are being looked after, it's all good. You know, we had a good time through that, but yeah, around the same time, I think I've already mentioned, my mum was showing further signs of dementia, which became hard during COVID because, you know, obviously with lockdowns, etc., you don't want to make her potentially sick or anything, but she was trying to walk to the house and just hug us because she wasn't quite getting the whole scenario. But yeah, moving into COVID, I ended up working from home a couple of months into that job. So around about March, you know, Ziggy'd only been home a month. He was in hospital a month. We had a lot of stress around that. And then I started working from home, and that's quite a weird scenario to all of a sudden just work full time from home. Just mentioning on COVID as well, there was this really alarming time where they said they were going to shut up the bottle shops down because they weren't an essential service. So it was quite a funny day. I think I went and bought 3 cartons of beer and a box of wine, like a dozen wines, just so we had booze at home. But within a day or so, that was overturned because of the fears of domestic violence, and also the pressure on hospitals with alcoholics all of a sudden withdrawing all over the state. I mean, what kind of ridiculous idea would that be through COVID, just to get a bunch of alcoholics filling up your hospitals? Because they do have physical withdrawal symptoms. It's a beast. It's a beast that gets hold of you when it does. But that turned into, you know,